The Empire that never lost. The golden records of victory. Captain Vrwenen stood before the wall of conquest, his 4 eyes reflecting the amber glow of holographic displays. Each light represented a world that had bent the knee to the Xantharian collective. 412 victories. Not a single defeat in 3 centuries. His chest swelled with pride as he traced his clawed finger along the newest addition to their collection, a blue-green world designated as Target 413. The command bridge of the Eternal Dominion hummed with quiet efficiency. Officers monitored their stations with practiced precision. Navigation systems plotted courses through the void of space. The ship itself was magnificent, 7 kilometers of polished metal and crystalline energy cores that could power a small sun. Banners hung from the ceiling, each one telling the story of another conquered civilization. Lieutenant Corvus approached, her silver skin shimmering under the bridge lights. She carried a data pad containing the latest intelligence reports. "Captain, we are approaching the target system. Our scouts have completed their assessment. The inhabitants call themselves humans." Vrwenen turned his attention to the main viewing screen. A yellow star burned in the distance, and orbiting it was the 3rd planet, a world of blues and greens, swirling white clouds, and vast oceans. "What do we know about their military strength?" Corvus tapped her data pad, bringing up images of crude spacecraft and primitive weapons. "Limited, sir. They have achieved basic space travel. They have colonies on their moon and the 4th planet in their system. Their weapons are mostly chemical propulsion and early energy systems. Our analysts estimate they are approximately 4 centuries behind our technology. And yet we brought 300 warships." Vrwenen allowed himself a slight smile. "The Supreme Council wants to send a message to this entire sector. A quick victory here will convince neighboring systems that resistance is pointless." Corvus hesitated, her secondary eyelids flickering, a sign of uncertainty in Xantharian biology. "Captain, if I may speak candidly, is such overwhelming force necessary? These humans pose no credible threat to our empire." "That is precisely the point, Lieutenant." Vrwenen walked to the viewport, watching distant stars drift past as they prepared to drop from hyperspace. Other species will witness that even the weakest civilizations cannot stand against the collective. Surrender becomes the only rational choice. We save lives on both sides. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as it emerged into normal space, followed by 299 other vessels. The Xantharian fleet spread out in perfect geometric formation, a wall of steel and plasma that had broken the will of countless worlds. Each ship bore the names of previous victories etched into their hulls like trophies of war. The message of inevitable victory. "Initiate standard diplomatic protocol," Vrwenen commanded. "Broadcast the ultimatum in all recognized galactic languages. Give them 1 full rotation of their planet to respond." A young officer activated the communications array. The message had been refined through hundreds of repetitions across hundreds of worlds. It was simple and efficient: surrender completely. Accept Xantharian rule, and their world would be peacefully integrated into the Empire. Resist, and they would be eliminated without mercy. Vrwenen did not consider this cruelty. It was logic. Why waste resources and lives when the outcome was already determined? The Xantharian way of war was based on overwhelming demonstration of power. Most civilizations chose survival over pride. Hours passed in tense silence. The Xantharian fleet held position at the outer edge of the solar system. Weapons remained powered but not yet armed. This was psychological warfare. Let the enemy count their ships. Let them calculate the impossibility of victory. Let them feel the weight of inevitability. Then the response arrived. A human voice crackled through the communication system, speaking in an accented but understandable version of Galactic Standard. "This is Admiral Chen Wei of the United Earth Defense Command. Your message has been received and analyzed. Here is our answer: you have made a grave miscalculation coming here. Turn your fleet around and leave our system immediately. Stay, and you will discover why that is a mistake. Ripples of amusement spread through the bridge crew. Even Lieutenant Corvus couldn't suppress a small smile. The audacity of these primitives threatening the most powerful military force in known space was almost charming. Virwenen raised his hand for silence. Admirable courage, but foolish. Activate long-range sensors. Show me their defense fleet. The holographic display expanded, showing the entire solar system in detail. What appeared on the screens made several officers gasp. Ships were emerging from hiding positions, behind moons, within asteroid fields, from orbital stations around multiple planets. The computer began counting. 100 vessels. 200. 300. Then more. Sir, the sensor officer's voice carried uncertainty. Total count is 517 ships of various classes and configurations. Virwenen leaned forward in his command chair. The human vessels looked nothing like Syntherian ships. Where his fleet was elegant and streamlined, theirs were angular and brutal. Thick armor plating covered every surface. Weapon ports bristled along their hulls like the quills of some dangerous creature. They bore names painted in bold letters: Defiance, Unbroken, Remember Pearl Harbor, Never Surrender, Last Stand, Rising Phoenix. The mathematics of war. They have more ships than we do, Corvus stated the obvious, her voice tight. Numbers are meaningless without technological superiority. Virwenen kept his voice confident, though something about those ships made his combat instincts prickle with warning. Scan their capabilities. I want detailed analysis of what we are facing. The tactical analysis came back within minutes. The human ships used outdated fusion power systems. Their shields were significantly weaker. Their weapons were primitive by Syntherian standards. On paper, any single Syntherian vessel could destroy 4 or 5 human ships. The mathematics still heavily favored the collective. But something troubled Virwenen. The design philosophy was completely wrong. Syntherian ships were built for glory, smooth lines and artistic elements that demonstrated their civilization's superiority. They were works of art that happened to be weapons of war. Human ships looked like they were built for exactly one purpose: to kill and to survive. Every angle served a function. Every surface provided tactical advantage. There was no beauty here. Only brutal, efficient design. Sir, the human fleet is changing formation, the navigation officer reported. They are not retreating. They are moving to engage. Virwenen straightened in his command chair, his 4 hands gripping the armrests. All ships, assume combat formation beta. Power weapons to 70%. Open a channel. We will give them one final opportunity to surrender. The Syntherian fleet responded instantly, ships sliding into attack positions with rehearsed precision. Energy shields shimmered into existence, wrapping each vessel in protective barriers of force. Plasma cannons began charging, their blue glow visible even through the viewports. The human fleet accelerated forward. But they did not move in perfect formation like the Syntherians. Instead, they advanced in loose groups that moved with unsettling coordination. It reminded Virwenen of something he had once seen in a nature documentary about Earth: predators hunting in coordinated packs. Sir, they are not responding to our communication attempts, the communications officer reported. Then we proceed with demonstration of force, Virwenen declared. All ships, prepare to fire warning shots across their lead vessels. We will show them our power and break their will to fight. But before he could give the final order, Admiral Chen Wei's voice came through again, broadcast on open channels for everyone to hear. You came to our home expecting easy prey. You see primitive ships and assume primitive minds. That is your first mistake. We are humans, and we are from Earth. We survived ice ages that should have killed us. We survived asteroid impacts and supervolcanoes. We tamed fire and split the atom. We fought wars that nearly destroyed our entire species and learned from every one of them. You think you are unstoppable. So did the dinosaurs. So did every empire that thought it would last forever. Let me tell you what makes us different from every other species you have conquered. We are not fighters by choice. We are survivors by nature. And we learned long ago that the best way to survive is to be too dangerous to attack. The transmission ended. Silence fell across the bridge. Virwanen felt a chill run down his spine, though he could not explain why. Something in that human's voice carried a weight that went beyond mere bravado. Fire, Virwanen commanded, his voice cutting through the tension. The Xantharian fleet opened fire. 300 ships unleashed plasma bolts that streaked across the void toward the human vessels. Each bolt carried enough energy to vaporize a small asteroid. Xantharian targeting systems locked onto the lead human ships with perfect precision. This was supposed to be the moment when courage broke against superior firepower. The moment when the enemy scattered in terror. The human ships did not scatter. Instead, they accelerated directly into the barrage. Their shields flared brilliant blue as plasma washed over them. But those shields held. More than held. They seemed specifically designed to absorb and dissipate energy weapons. Virwanen watched in growing disbelief as the human vessels emerged from the devastating assault with only minimal damage. Report, he demanded. Sir, enemy shields are still at 82% effectiveness, the tactical officer's voice carried confusion. Our weapons are not penetrating as predicted. The damage is significantly less than calculated. Increase power to maximum output. All ships, concentrate fire on their flagship. The Xantharian fleet adjusted, pouring devastating energy into a single human vessel marked Indomitable. The ship's shields glowed white-hot, buckling under the sustained assault. For a moment, Virwanen thought they had achieved breakthrough. Then the human fleet returned fire. But they did not use energy weapons. Metal slugs, solid chunks of iron and tungsten, came screaming across space at velocities that should have been impossible. The Xantharians had encountered kinetic weapons before. Primitive things that barely scratched modern shields. These were different. The first projectile hit a Xantharian cruiser amidship. The shield, designed to deflect plasma and particle beams, offered almost no resistance to physical mass traveling at 4% of light speed. The projectile punched completely through the hull, creating a catastrophic wound that vented atmosphere, crew, and internal systems into space. The ship listed sideways, emergency systems screaming, fires erupting from multiple decks. What was that? Lieutenant Corvus gripped her station, her silver skin paling to almost white. Rail gun, the weapons analyst called out, pulling up data frantically. Magnetically accelerated solid projectile. Mass approximately 300 kilograms. Velocity 0.04 c. Our shields are not calibrated for kinetic impacts of this magnitude. More slugs followed. The Xantharians had superior numbers and devastating energy weapons. But the humans had built their entire arsenal around a weakness the collective did not know it possessed. Every shot that connected did catastrophic damage. Ships that had survived hundreds of battles found their armor inadequate against weapons that humanity had perfected over centuries of warfare. The doctrine of survival. Evasive maneuvers. Virwanen ordered. Reform at extended range. Recalibrate shield frequencies to account for kinetic weaponry. The fleet attempted to comply, but the human ships were faster than their specifications suggested. They broke formation completely, individual vessels peeling off in unpredictable patterns. Xantharian tactical computers, programmed for organized warfare against organized opponents, struggled to track targets that moved with apparent randomness. Commander Corvus, what are they launching? Virwanen pointed at the display where hundreds of small objects streamed from human ships. Corvus worked frantically at her console. Small craft. Approximately 800 individual units. Each no larger than an escape pod. Missiles. Target them with point defense systems. Eliminate all incoming projectiles. But they were not missiles. The small craft maneuvered with impossible agility, dodging plasma fire with rapid bursts from chemical thrusters. They did not try to evade forever, only long enough to reach their targets. When they connected with Syntherian ships, they detonated with nuclear force. Drones, Corvus realized, her voice filled with horror. Unmanned explosive devices. They are sacrificing machines, not lives. 4 Syntherian destroyers vanished in brilliant nuclear flashes. 3 more suffered critical damage as swarms of kamikaze drones overwhelmed their defenses. The tactic seemed wasteful by Syntherian standards. Why sacrifice resources on single-use weapons when reusable guided missiles existed? But the humans clearly operated under a different philosophy. They cared nothing for efficiency in the traditional sense. Admiral Chen Wei's voice cut through the chaos again. You demanded this fight. We tried to warn you. Humans do not seek conquest. We do not fight for glory. We fight for survival. And we learned long ago that the best defense is being too dangerous to attack. Every ship we destroy is one less weapon you can use against other worlds. Every loss you suffer is another family demanding answers from your leaders. How long before your people start asking if conquering Earth was worth the cost? The word hit Vryn harder than any rail-gun projectile. Cost. Syntherian culture was built on victory, on the glory of conquest without significant loss. But it had been 3 centuries since they faced real resistance. What would happen if this fleet returned home defeated? What would happen if they did not return at all? Sir, we have lost 23 ships, Corvus's voice was tight with stress. 47 more have significant damage. The enemy is exploiting our formation. When we concentrate fire, they target our flanks. When we spread out, they focus on isolated vessels. They are using our tactics against us. Vryn watched the tactical display, seeing the battle unfold in real time. The humans were not fighting like any enemy the collective had encountered. They did not try to hold territory. They did not attempt to protect strategic positions. They simply attacked wherever the Syntherians were weakest, then withdrew before facing concentrated return fire. This was not the warfare of civilized species. This was something primal. Something that had been forged not in academies and war colleges, but in the crucible of survival on a death world where only the adaptable live to see another day. And for the first time in his career, Captain Vryn felt something he had never experienced in battle before. Fear. The cost of arrogance. The lesson of underestimation. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as another rail-gun slug passed within meters of the bridge, the near miss sending shockwaves through the ship's superstructure. Warning lights flashed across multiple consoles. The beautiful, elegant vessel that had been the pride of the Syntherian fleet was now scarred with carbon scoring and structural damage. Engineering reports shield generators at 40% capacity, Lieutenant Corvus called out over the sound of alarms. We have hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Casualties are mounting. Captain Vryn gripped his command chair, watching the tactical display with growing dread. In the span of 20 minutes, everything he had known about warfare had been turned upside down. The Syntherian collective had built their empire on a simple principle: technological superiority guaranteed victory. That principle was now lying shattered among the debris of destroyed warships. Status of the fleet, he demanded. 31 ships destroyed. 62 with critical damage unable to maintain combat effectiveness. The humans have lost 43 vessels. Corvus's voice carried disbelief. Sir, at this rate of exchange, they can afford to lose more ships than we can. They have numbers and they are willing to sacrifice them. Vryn felt his blood run cold. In 3 centuries of conquest, the Syntherian military doctrine had never accounted for an enemy willing to accept heavy losses to inflict heavier ones on their opponents. Every species they had encountered valued preservation. They surrendered when casualties reached acceptable levels. But these humans fought like every battle was their last stand. Pull back to defensive formation Gamma. Focus fire on damaged enemy vessels. We need to even these numbers. Virwanen was no longer thinking about conquest. He was thinking about survival. The fleet began to reform, trying to create a defensive sphere where overlapping fields of fire would protect damaged ships. But the human fleet adapted instantly. Small groups of ships, they called them wolf packs, darted in from multiple angles, fired their devastating rail guns, then retreated before the Xantharians could respond effectively. The voice of experience. Incoming transmission, the communications officer reported. Admiral Chenwei is broadcasting again. Put it through, Virwanen said, knowing that refusing would show weakness to his own crew. The human admiral's face appeared on the main screen. Chenwei looked old by human standards, gray hair, lines around his eyes, a scar across his left cheek. But those eyes held a hardness that Virwanen recognized. This was someone who had seen real combat, who had lost people under his command, who knew the true cost of war. Captain Virwanen of the Xantharian Collective, Chenwei spoke with the calm of absolute confidence. You are experiencing something your empire has not felt in a very long time, real resistance. I see your formation. You are shifting to defensive posture. That is smart. You are learning. But let me teach you something else about humans. Virwanen wanted to cut the transmission, but something made him listen. You came here thinking we were primitive. Weak. Easy prey. You looked at our technology and saw obsolete systems. But you know what you did not see? You did not see 3,000 years of continuous warfare. You did not see the lessons we learned fighting each other when we were trapped on one planet with nowhere to run. You did not see the innovations born from desperation when losing meant extinction. Chenwei leaned forward, his expression hardening. Your ships are more advanced. Your energy weapons are more powerful. Your shields are more elegant. But our weapons were designed by survivors who learned one truth: when you cannot match an enemy's technology, you change the rules of engagement. You hit them where they are weakest. You make victory cost more than they are willing to pay. The admiral paused, letting his words sink in. You have lost 31 ships so far. That is more than your empire has lost in the last 50 years combined. How will you explain this to your leaders? What will you tell the families of the dead? That they died conquering a primitive world that should have surrendered? That their sacrifice was necessary for glory? The mathematics of survival. Virwanen felt anger rising in his chest. You speak of losses as if they do not affect you. You have lost ships as well. You have sacrificed your own people. Yes, Chenwei acknowledged without hesitation. We have. And we will lose more before this is over. But there is a difference between us, Captain. We are fighting for our home. Our families. Our survival. What are you fighting for? Territory? Resources? Pride? None of those things are worth dying for. But survival is worth everything. The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge of the eternal dominion. Virwanen looked at his crew and saw doubt in their faces. Xantharian culture celebrated victory. They wrote songs about conquests. They built monuments to successful campaigns. But they had no songs about defeats because defeats did not happen. Until now. Sir, the human fleet is repositioning again, the tactical officer reported. They are not pressing their advantage. They are waiting. Virwanen studied the display. The human ships had pulled back to medium range, maintaining their loose formation but not attacking. It was a calculated move. They were giving the Xantharians time to think. Time to count their losses. Time to realize that victory here, if it came at all, would be costly beyond measure. Lieutenant Corvus, Virwanen spoke quietly, calculate projected casualties if we continue this engagement to completion. Corvus worked her console, running tactical simulations based on current loss rates. When she looked up, her face had lost all color. Sir, if we maintain current exchange ratios, we will lose approximately 120 ships by the time we destroy their remaining fleet. That is 40% of our total force. And that assumes they do not have additional reinforcements or hidden weapons. 120 ships. 12,000 crew members. The Xantharian collective had not suffered losses on that scale in living memory. The political consequences would be catastrophic. Supreme Council members would demand investigations. Military careers would be destroyed. Families would demand answers. The price of victory. Captain, one of the junior officers spoke up, something almost never done during combat. Sir, is this conquest worth the price we are paying? Virwanen should have reprimanded the officer for questioning orders. But he found he could not. Because he was asking himself the same question. Earth held no strategic resources that were not available elsewhere. It had no unique technology to capture. It offered no tactical advantage for controlling this sector of space. The only reason for the invasion was demonstration, to show neighboring systems that the Xantharian collective was unstoppable. But if they lost half their fleet proving that point, what message would they actually send? Sir, incoming communication from the Collective High Command, the communications officer announced. Supreme Commander Dravix is demanding a status update. Virwanen felt his stomach tighten. He opened the channel. Supreme Commander Dravix's face appeared, silver skin, for stern eyes, elaborate ceremonial markings indicating his rank. Captain Virwanen, we are receiving fragmentary reports of heavy combat. Explain the situation. Supreme Commander, the humans are more capable than initial intelligence indicated. They have deployed unconventional weapons that our shields are poorly designed to counter. We have achieved a 2-to-1 kill ratio, but their numerical advantage means we are sustaining significant losses. Dravix's eyes narrowed. Define significant. 31 ships destroyed. 62 severely damaged. Projected casualties if we continue to victory, 120 ships total. The Supreme Commander's face registered shock, then anger, then something else, calculation. Captain Virwanen, the Collective Council is watching this engagement. The entire Empire is watching. Withdrawal is not an option. Defeat is not acceptable. But. Dravix paused, choosing his words carefully. Neither is a victory that destroys our fleet. You have authorization to offer the humans conditional surrender terms. Sir. Offer them autonomy. Limited self-governance under collective oversight. Reduced tribute. Whatever is necessary to end this engagement without further losses. Frame it as mercy, not weakness. Dravix's expression hardened. But Captain, this offer is available for precisely 1 standard hour. If they refuse, you are authorized to withdraw the fleet. We will categorize Earth as a restricted death world and place it under permanent quarantine. No conquest is worth destroying our military capacity. The transmission ended. Virwanen sat in his command chair, processing the implications. The Xantharian collective, the empire that had never known defeat, was preparing to walk away from a conquest. Not because they could not win, but because winning would cost too much. The human response. Open a channel to Admiral Chen Wei, Virwanen ordered. Encrypted. Command level only. The connection established quickly. The human admiral appeared on the screen, his expression neutral. Captain Virwanen. I hope you are calling to discuss withdrawal. I am calling to offer you terms, Virwanen said, keeping his voice formal. The collective is prepared to grant Earth autonomy. You would maintain self-governance, establish your own laws, control your own territory. We would ask only for formal recognition of the collective's sovereignty over this sector and minimal tribute, resources you can easily spare. You would avoid destruction, and we would avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Chen Wei was quiet for a long moment. Let me make sure I understand. You came here demanding complete surrender. We fought back. Now you are offering us limited independence if we acknowledge your authority and pay tribute? That is correct. It is a generous offer considering the alternative. And the alternative is? Continued warfare until one of us is destroyed. Chen Wei smiled, but there was no humor in it. Captain, let me tell you something about human psychology. We do not negotiate from positions of weakness. We do not accept tribute demands from invaders. And we certainly do not acknowledge the authority of empires that try to conquer us. The admiral leaned forward. Here is my counteroffer. You leave. You go back to your empire. You tell them that Earth is not worth the cost. You tell them that humans are not a species to be conquered. And in return, we let you go home alive. You are in no position to make demands, Vrn snapped. We still outnumber you. Our technology is still superior. Yes, you outnumber us. And yes, your technology is superior. But ask yourself this question, Captain, what will you have left when this is over? Even if you destroy every human ship, even if you kill every human in this system, you will return home with half your fleet gone. Your career will be over. Your reputation will be destroyed. Officers will whisper your name as a cautionary tale. Is that the legacy you want? Vrn felt the truth of those words like a physical blow. I thought so, Chen Wei continued. This is not about military victory, Captain. This is about what kind of empire you want to serve. One that conquers because it can. Or one that chooses battles that are worth fighting. We are giving you the opportunity to make a choice. The wise choice. The transmission ended before Vrn could respond. The decision that changed everything. Captain Vrn sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display. Red markers showed his damaged and destroyed ships. Blue markers showed the human fleet, still combat-ready, still dangerous, still waiting. Captain. Lieutenant Corvus asked quietly. What are your orders? Vrn took a deep breath. He thought about the wall of conquest back on the homeworld. 412 victories. He had been so proud of that record. But none of those victories had cost even a fraction of what this one battle had already demanded. Send a message to all ships, he said slowly. We are withdrawing from the system. Full retreat to jump coordinates. Maintain defensive formation. Sir. Corvus looked shocked. Are we surrendering? No, Vrn said firmly. We are making a strategic decision. We are choosing not to spend Xantharian lives on a conquest that serves no purpose beyond pride. Earth will be designated a restricted world. No collective ship is to enter this system without explicit permission from High Command. The Supreme Commander authorized this. He gave me options. I am choosing the one that brings our people home alive. Vrn looked at his crew, seeing respect returning to their faces. Begin withdrawal. The Xantharian fleet slowly disengaged, moving back toward the edge of the system. The human fleet did not pursue. They held position, weapons trained on the retreating vessels, but they did not fire. They were letting the Xantharians leave. As the Eternal Dominion prepared to jump to hyperspace, Admiral Chen Wei's voice came through one final time. Captain Vrn, you made the right choice. Tell your empire that humans do not seek war. But if war comes to us, we will fight with everything we have. Tell them that Earth is not weak. We are just done being conquered. I will tell them, Vrn replied. One more thing, Chen Wei added. In 100 years, maybe 200, your empire will face a real threat. Something that actually wants to destroy you, not just resist you. When that day comes, you will need allies. Remember that the humans you chose not to conquer today might be the friends you need tomorrow. The transmission ended. The Xantharian fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the solar system behind. The message that spread across the stars. Virwenen sat alone in his quarters as the ship traveled through hyperspace toward home. He began writing his official report, knowing it would be read by the entire military command structure. He did not try to hide the losses. He did not make excuses. He simply told the truth. The humans were not primitive. They were survivors. They had built their civilization through conflict, learned their tactics through necessity, and perfected their weapons through desperation. They did not fight like civilized species bound by honor and rules. They fought like cornered animals with nothing left to lose, which made them the most dangerous opponents the collective could face. His report concluded with a recommendation that would shock the Empire: Earth should not be conquered. It should be studied. Perhaps even approached as potential allies. Because any species that could inflict such losses while technologically inferior would be invaluable partners against any true existential threat. When the fleet returned home 3 weeks later, the Wall of Conquest remained at 412 victories. But a new designation had been added to galactic maps: Earth, Deathworld. Do not engage without extreme caution. And across the galaxy, other species began to whisper about a world called Earth, where humans lived. A species that had turned back the Xantharian collective not through superior technology or greater numbers, but through sheer unwillingness to submit. The story spread. The legend grew. And humanity, having proven they were too dangerous to conquer, continued building their ships, training their soldiers, and preparing for the next threat. Because that was what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They endured. And they never,